Here we go. And we're live. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today at our very first of what will be many webinar style video format training series for technology stuff. I've called it Real World, Real Estate, Real Tech, because that's what it is. It's going to be stuff realistically stuff that you're going to want to know about that has to do with real estate and also has to do with screens. So first version, at long last, we are going over how to do a Authentisign contract or an Instanet contract. In the new, what is right now the beta version, we're doing this class in a format where the old version doesn't exist, and we're just moving forward with what Instanet is. The Instanet 2.0 upgrade is, in my opinion, a wonderful improvement of what was already a really handy tool for realtors to have in their arsenal, right? Having the ability to do an electronic contract can be convenient for you. It can be convenient for the other agent, for the client, most importantly, and efficiency. That's key. So let's get into it. We're going to learn how to write a purchase offer from start to finish. And there may be more modules going off of electronic contracts. I may very likely do one on how to work with a seller on an electronic listing contract. But purchase contracts more prevalent in the real world of electronic contracts. So before we get super far into the nitty-gritty of learning, let's set some expectations for today. So we're going to go over a bunch of different stuff. For those of you that do not want to go through the real basics of Instanet, either you've sat with Dave before and we've gone over doing a purchase offer, or you've already been working with purchase offers for a while, you kind of taught yourself maybe through some provided videos that Instanet gives you, whatever it may be. If this is not something that you want to sit through, I will give you a timestamp somewhere. I might throw it in the email where I send it out. Maybe there's a way for me to superimpose it on the screen. Maybe I'll try and do that. But either way, there will be a timestamp and you can skip forward to that when we actually start doing the contract. But for those who want to learn from start to finish, or maybe want a little bit of a refresher on Instanet 101, we're going to go over basics of transactions. So what those are, right? Why do we use a transaction? What is the practical use case? We're going to learn also about the wizard. The wizard is, if anybody remembers what it's like when you would on your old computer, or even I guess on Windows 10 and all your current software also, there would open up a little dialog box when you want to install the new program. It's going to say, hey, do you want this wizard thing to help you through the steps? And the Instanet wizard is very similar in that it's going to guide you through steps to help you craft what will ultimately be a complete transaction with pertinent paperwork for your file. So we're going to get into that. We're also going to get into a lot of navigation, because there are various screens that you're going to find yourself on, and they are all within Instanet, but they might look a little bit different. Buttons might be in different places depending on what screen that you're on. So we're going to go over kind of where we are at all times and always know how to get back to a place that's familiar no matter where we are. We're also going to go over forms and documents. Forms and documents they may sound synonymous, but there's actually a difference in Instanet. There's a form, and then there's a document. The classification of each file, right, is different. So why does that matter is something that we're going to be covering in detail. And then last but not least, how to write and send a purchase offer. We're going to go right from start to finish. We're going to pick a random listing on the MLS, and we're going to write an offer as if we're the buyer's agent. So for lack of being what we call one who makes an assumption, we're going to set a couple of what I would call foundational assumptions, right? The first of which is that you know what a fillable form is. whether you've used a company form, all of those electronic versions are fillable. You can just type right on them on the screen. You could save a new version. So you can always keep your blank template, and you can save, you could overwrite, I should say, overwrite new versions of the blank template at your discretion. And that you also, assumption number 2, is that you kind of know what an electronic signature is. You should also know how to log into Matrix and therefore Instanet, but we will of course cover that by default, as we'll have to do that in order to get into Instanet ourselves via the demonstration. The third one I gave you as a freebie is that you know how to use an Instanet, or excuse me, that you know that an Instanet template is, in effect, one of the folders that you're going to get at one of the offices, and it's going to have the big stack of papers in there, and you're going to recycle what you don't need, and you're going to take with you what you do to go and get your contract signed or to go and get your listing filled out. So what we see as a template on Instanet equal to what we see as a folder in our office, our faith office. So last, we're going to kind of go over some handy terms to know as we're going through the demonstration and learning a lot about the software. Tons of new words are going to be flying at us. Let's kind of hash out what the bare bones definitions are, and then we'll have a little bit more context, of course, with the application in front of us. So Instanet. So Instanet is we'll sometimes call it Instanet. We might call it Transaction Desk. We might call it Authentisign. We might call it Lone Wolf. We might call it DocuSign. I've heard everything under the sun. Instanet is the name of the program. So that's only important when we're using Instanet versus Authentisign. So in like some context. So I can say, I'm going to go into Instanet and I'm going to create a signing. That's totally valid because Instanet is the thing that you're going to, and then Authentisign, the second term, is the act of signing. It's the John Hancock. It is the process within Instanet that you go in and create a signature to send out electronically. There are things that you can do in Instanet having nothing to do with an electronic signature. It could be whether it's the best one or not is probably going to depend on your business, but you could use this as cloud storage and a place to keep all of your folder or all of your files for any of your transactions that you have going in the MLS. And there's tons of value in why someone might want to do that. But neither here nor there, right? Instanet versus Authentisign, 2 different things. Just be aware of context. They can be used synonymously. Dashboard. Dashboard's our home screen. Dashboard is the icon on the screen is an odometer, but the dashboard is what is home. A transaction is a file folder. A transaction is what we are going to create and what we are going to use to house our purchase contract and all the disclosures and a copy of the deposit and all that good stuff. And we'll get more into that as we go. A template, as we covered already, is like a folder from the office. All my paperwork is in there for me, prearranged. And the wizard we already covered is that thing that helps you fill out the Instanet or the transaction within Instanet. Within the wizard, there's going to be some handy verbiage like contacts. Contacts are going to be within wizard transaction parties. So anyone who's pertinent to 123 Main Street is what it's asking you for when it requests contacts or shows you contacts in the wizard. Here we'll learn the real use case for what a form is. And you'll see on the screen, forms are fillable. That's the biggest difference. Easy to remember, right? Form fillable. It's something that I can fill out on the screen within the software. Whereas A document is like a disclosure, something that's already been filled out. And maybe I'm scanning it in. It's already been filled out and it's been maybe the copy of the deposit. It's already been signed. I'm just going to upload it into the documents area of my transaction. I still want to have reference to it. I need to put it even in the packet, right? When I send it to the other agent, but I'm not filling, there's no fields on which I can just type. And there's not really a use case for that. If you think about where, like the property condition disclosure, for example, is something that's filled out between the seller and the seller's agent and uploaded to the MLS. It doesn't need to be fillable. Maybe for them it needed to be, but for me, I just need one signature and one date per buyer. If I have 2 buyers, I need 2 and 1 of each, but no need for that to be fillable. So forms documents, that's important. We'll cover more in depth as we go. And then the form library, I'll briefly show you because you'll need to know where it is and how to get to different forms in it. You can access that right through the wizard as well as in other places. And a quick, easy detour with most things tech, and of course here in Instanet, there's usually more than one way to do something. I'm going to show you what I feel for you as agents is the easiest way. You might know of another way. That's perfect. You might have been told about, and maybe you do something completely different. Also totally awesome. It's great to know that there are more than one thing, but for those who are kind of just relying on this as their sole source for direction, this is a way that I have found works for me and for a lot of you guys that sit down with me to learn. So Instanet specific additional terms, and actually, you know what? I made a mistake here because these are not synonymous. This should be called relevant terms for Authentisign, and I'll change my slide in the future. Authentisign is going to give you specific things that are only available if you're doing something with a signature. So things like the drawer of tools, what I'm calling the Authentisign drawer. It's going to have the things you can drag and drop signature blocks. You can drag and drop little date blocks, text things that you can type on, little check boxes. That's all within the drawer. So when I refer to the Authentisign drawer, I mean that thing over there on the side with all the bells and whistles. And you'll encounter map signers. So map signers are basically when you're selecting transaction parties, as we know, there's a buyer and a buyer's agent and a seller and a seller's agent. But there's also parties like the escrow agent, the listing broker and the selling broker. I think that's pretty much it. But map signers is going to be the place in which we can determine the location that buyer's signatures are. So when this pops up on the screen, and I will identify it when it does, it's already going to pre-select for us, if we do it the right way, where they believe those signer blocks should be mapped. And for lack of confusing you, it's how you get all of the pre-filled signature and initial blocks on the contract, which is a big time saver and a big reason why a lot of us use Authentisign for contracts. Okay, signer actions. This is a sub-menu within your tools, right? When I say signer actions, it just means that it's something that we're going to drag on to the document for the client to do. That might be sign, that might be check, do a little checkbox. But a signer field is something like an auto date field, where it's just a date field that will fill in the moment that a buyer or seller clicks sign. So we're not going to get into too much detail just on basics. We'll actually get into that while we're doing the signing. Markup is just know that when I say markup are tools for realtors only. That's how we use the little pen and the highlight tool to identify places that are important to the client electronically. Other lingo, this is like tech stuff. Ribbon menu is the icons found at the top of the window. Remember that because I'm going to refer to the ribbon menu often, as opposed to the sandwich menu. The sandwich menu is on the side, you'll usually see, or sometimes it's here, but usually it's in the top corner and it's 3 lines. You might hear it referred to as the hamburger menu or the 3 lines. Always, I just call it the sandwich menu. It's that. Click it. There's usually more options that appear. And then the same thing with the 3-dot menu. You just click the 3 dots and it's going to usually display more options for you. Ready to go? Let's go. So I'm going to exit my presentation. And the first thing I will do, so I'm going to just pick something randomly off a matrix and we're just going to write it. We're going to write a offer on it. So first things first, we're going to matrix. I'm already logged in. I'm going to log out just so that, again, I told you we're going to do our due diligence. I'm going to show you from start to finish how to log in. So here's the screen when I go to nys.mlsmatrix.com, right? That's what's pulling up here. When I go there, it loads this screen, my username and password. I click login and it brings me to the single sign-on screen. I sometimes will call this the tile screen, the block screen, the box screen. This is where we go to matrix. Here today, we're actually going to go to both. So I always will open a matrix box and watch what happens here as and let me see if I can do something fancy here. I might be able to. As I do this. Aha, yeah, I can. So here's this little red dot, follow that. That's where my mouse is going to be if you have trouble keeping track. I move a little fast sometimes. I'm trying to be conscious of that. So that's what I was saying. I always will open a matrix box, but watch what happens when I click the matrix box. See how it opens a second tab within my browser? It will always do that whenever I click something off this screen. That's on purpose because this is a single sign-on screen from which you can access multiple apps and tools. It's going to leave this open for you unless you close it. So I'll usually leave it open and it will keep me logged in for 2 hours. If 2 hours go by and no activity is had on this page, it will time you out and you'll just log back in. But here, I'm just going to open a matrix box and I'm going to open a Authentisign box or an Instanet box. Here is our dashboard. Our dashboard, as we've already covered, is our home screen. This is where we first start as we open Authentisign, or I'm sorry, Instanet. I'm going to keep doing that because again, they're so interchangeably used. And just look at where my mouse is right now. What is the actual software calling it? Transaction desk. So again, as long as you know the context that's being used when it's in the sentence, then you're good. So here we are in transaction desk in our dashboard. And whenever I'm creating a purchase offer, the first thing I'm going to do, and I'm also trying to be conscious, I know I can move this. I don't ever want to be in the way. So I hope I'm not ever. My little box here. So the first thing I'm always going to do is create a transaction. So as I create a transaction, it prompts me for 5 pieces of information. The name, I always will call this the street address of the house. Some people will call this the name of their client. You can call it both. There are no rules, I don't think, with writing it, other than the fact that you see this little asterisk. It means that you have to have a name, got to call it something. So for the sake of the example, I always go with Main Street. Let's do 159 South Street in Oriskany. I don't know if that's a real address or street in Oriskany. We're going to go with it. Template is important. If you do not pick a template, when you get to the place in the wizard where your documents are supposed to be arranged like the folder in the office, it will be blank. You might wonder, why do I see no forms here? It's because you did not pick a template. So as we're writing a purchase offer, we know we're going to write the purchase offer packet or select it. And then it's going to ask us to import some data. And it is optional. If I'm writing a purchase offer and it's listed in the MLS, to me, I'm always writing the MLS number. And as I click the drop-down box for select source, I see a lot in New York State Alliance. The MLS is an option, and it's going to prompt me for the MLS number. So here I go. I'm going to go to Matrix just to pull the MLS number. Think of the context of you writing an offer for a home. You're already going to know the buyer's already gone and looked at the house, and you know the MLS number. You pulled all the listing information for them previously. So I'm going to go and copy paste Lori Frieden's new listing here on Turin. And once I put the MLS number in, it automatically selects me as the selling agent because I selected the purchase offer packet. Watch closely as I pick listing packet, it will change me to the listing agent. This is, I can change it to both if I happen to be the listing agent. But here, purchase offer packet, it's picking me as the selling agent. This is everything I need. So once I hit create up here in the top, and you'll notice that use wizard box right there, as it says, please wait, you can still see the checkbox. Use wizard is checked by default, leave it checked. It's what loads into this screen. This is the wizard. I'm not trying to move my box. I just want to make sure that you can at least see here. This is called the wizard. This is where we are. You can always access the wizard again. And you can even, if you need to, you can delete the transaction if you need to, if you messed up, and start right from scratch. So if you press that, it's just going to prompt you. You can hit yes. It'll bring you back to the dashboard from which you can create another transaction. We will not do that today. But step 1 of 5 within the wizard is details. So details is a step in the wizard I'm going to skip. Now you might say, Dave, why am I skipping a step in the wizard? Isn't the wizard to help me? Sure, the wizard is to help you, but sometimes less is more. And what I have found personally through using the software is us as agents are typically going to be not only more comfortable, but it's going to be easier in general for us to fill out the contract because remember, it's fillable, it's a form, it's fillable. Right on the screen, I can just type right on it. So I don't know why is it asking me for zoning class? My board's contract doesn't provide zoning class as an option. Where do these comments go? What if I type here? What happens and where does that go? And is it important for me to put other liens and where do all these fields lead? Short of figuring out each one, and I just skip it. Every field on the contract is fillable. I'm just going to write it right on the contract as if I've got a pen in my hand and a paper on the desk. So we're going to skip details. And with that same logic in mind, I skip transaction dates also for the same exact reason. I'm just going to put it on the contract. It's way easier to me. So again, you might know of a way that's different. You might know what those fields are linked to. Far be it from me to tell you what is easiest for you. This is something I found is easy for me, and this is the way that I do it. So I'm totally, if you want to if you want to grab me and say, Dave, it's actually maybe not as difficult as you think that it is, I'm totally open to that. Get a hold of me, So step 3, contacts. We're adding our people to the page. Everybody you'll see that Matrix knows of as a party to the transaction is already here. Isn't that awesome? So it knows the listing broker is called a Baker Faith. It knows the selling broker is called a Baker Faith. It knows the listing agent is Lori Frieden. It knows myself, I am a selling agent. It knows the seller is whatever the listing agent puts as the seller here. So you'll see it word for word, SST, FBO, Edward, J. Sears. It's got everything. And if I open up the details to that transaction contact, right? You're seeing it's allowing me to edit the transaction contact. The address for the seller is either exactly what the listing agent put, or if they didn't put anything, this is just blank. So what we need to do on step 3 is just add our buyer. That's our only step. And maybe if we want to rewrite this, because again, this is how it's going to appear on the contract. And in this case, I might call Lori and ask her, hey, how does the seller, and is that important for the seller to have like a particular executor from the trust on the name, or what needs to be there? And this seller's agent might be able to give you some guidance. I'm just going to add a contact. I know what my buyers' names are and how they need to take title. So the most frequently used options here are going to be, you can add yourself, but you're already going to be there if you're the listing agent. So you can skip that one for now. You're either going to create a new one, or you're going to add an existing one. Adding an existing contact just pulls up anybody to whom you sent something out of Instanet before. So I've emailed all of these people at some point a contract. So I can add one of them. If this is a new guy, I can say he's a buyer, and this part's important. You see, it even requires you to put somebody for type. I'm going to say this guy's name is, because I'm so creative, I might even already have one of these in the system. Johnny Appleseed is going to be our buyer today. I'm going to move myself over just a little. When I save Johnny, oh, and before I save Johnny, I can save myself some time in the future. And I can say that Johnny lives at 1 Apple Orchard Way. I'll just call it Orchard Way. That's a bit redundant. And we'll say that this is in Anywhereville. And this will appear at the top of my contract under the buyer address fields in the same way that the seller's address will do so for them. And because it's easier, I'm just going to leave it as one buyer for right now. Actually, you know what? No, I'm going to add a second buyer because there's other stuff I can show you if there's 2 buyers. So I'm going to add a new transaction contact. She's going to be another buyer. Her name is going to be Jane. You guessed it. Appleseed, because I'm so creative. And her address is also going to be 1 Orchard Way in Anywhereville. My favorite vacation destinations. Johnny and Jane, they're ready to rock. They're buying this house. Let's go. When I hit next, it's going to take a second, but it's going to load up all the forms. The forms are what I have arranged in the background, right? I've created these templates as the office that are made available to you as an agent within the office. The purchase contract I put in there, the addenda I put in there. I just put in there, quite simply, whatever's in the folder that you find at the office. And if the office folder has an update, it also happens here. So these should be, in theory, completely in sync all 100% of the time. If they're not, please let me know, and I will make that change. It's super, super simple for me to do that. So as I look through the forms, in the same way that when I pull a contract folder from the office and I go sit down at the conference table with the buyer, and it's a conventional buyer, and I don't need the FHA and the VA, I will usually throw those in the recycle bin. If I hit the 3-dot menu here on the right, I can hit delete. When I delete the item, it goes away from the form list. It's removed from the transaction entirely. Let's say that this is a VA buyer. I'll leave the VA option clause in there for right now, but the concept applies for all these guys. You could delete any of these forms if you don't want to use this. If I don't know what a form is, great question, person in the audience. Click on a document or form. Click on a form. Clicking on a form will pull it up right in front of your face. It's going to show you exactly how it will appear when you go and load it to edit it, and also if you were to go to have it signed right now. So you'll see this maybe isn't super friendly for the way that we want our contracts to appear. Maybe you don't want, me personally, I don't ever write like the seller's name or reference the seller's name other than up at the top of the contract. So I'm going to actually remove that. And you could leave the buyer's name if you want. They still have to sign above it. This is just indicating to them the line that they need to sign. So if I'm not sure what this is, like I said, I can just pull it right up by clicking on it. And if I like it, I can keep it. If I don't like it, then again, property condition disclosure statement for buyers, and I can just pan over to the 3-dot menu, delete, boom. All right. These are all the forms that we need, except I also want to grab an escalation clause because there's multiple offers. Let's say that we want to grab something like that. We'll go into the, oh, this is the form library. Yeah, sorry, I go sometimes a little quickly. This is the form library. The form library is super handy because it's going to give you an electronic repository of all the forms that you should need that are not Coldwell Banker faith specific forms. The CB, the franchise form, the one with the Coldwell Banker logo at the top, and it says we're a franchise and here's a bunch of stuff we want you to know. That you will not find in the Mohawk Valley Association form library because it doesn't have to do with Howard Hanna or Keller Williams or Hunt. That has to do with us only. We created that. It's only in our document archive, but this is the association's archive. So they're going to have everything that would be pertinent to everyone. So contracts and the lead form and a removal of contract contingencies form, that TRID form that everybody uses. That's the stuff that's going to be here. So I want to grab an escalation clause, and I'm not finding it in this particular folder. It looks like I'm in the MVAR buyer contracts folder. I want to go back and maybe find that in a MVAR buyer addendums folder. And there it is. I knew that it was here in the addendums folder. Let's say I didn't. Let's say I'm struggling and I can't find a form. If I know what the form is called, I can search for it. Escalation. Here we go. In really small letters, I can see the folder it's housed in. It comes up twice. All that is this identical form appears in multiple folders because it applies to multiple categories. It applies to all as well as a more granular category. Notice both greens, only one form is in my basket. I can click my basket. It will show me exactly what's in my cart. If I didn't mean to click that, I can remove the item by clicking the minus. If I did mean to add it, I can obviously click the circle to add it back. The only other thing I want to point out here is if you are looking for something like, let's say, because you got to know what the form is called. That's like the asterisk to this shortcut. Let's say I'm looking for the agency disclosure form. It says I'm a buyer's agent for you. Here's your name. You sign it, right? First substantive contact, that form. Agency. But it's not here. And the reason it's not here is, much to my chagrin, it is not called the agency disclosure form. It is called disclosure form for buyer and seller. The way that these documents are sorted is alphabetically by folder they're in. So we start, if I scroll all the way to the top, Buffalo, Cortland, Syracuse, Jeff Lou, and then we get to Mohawk Valley. So again, I just have to know that this form is called disclosure form for buyer and seller. No way around that one. Sorry, guys. When you press add, if you're not, let's say you're not sure, if you press add and you want to go and look at it, there you go. Go back to your screen, click on the name of the form, scroll through. Oh, yes, this is the one that I thought that it was. Great. I can press save exit to go back. I can also simply press the back button. That's pretty intuitive within Instanet. Sometimes we got to be careful about pressing the back button, or it might revert changes that we've made. You're pretty safe in Instanet. It will tell you if you're not. It will give you a dialogue, say, hey, are you sure you want to back out? This won't save your changes. So if it doesn't, you're good. It's just going to take you to where you were. So I know I've duplicated this form, disclosure form for buyer and seller is in here twice. I'm going to 3 dots and I'm going to delete that form. Are you sure you wish to delete? I am. Yes. And here we go. This is everything I need. On to the next and final step is documents. And this is, again, where I said when we were going over terms, this will come back up. Documents are disclosures. They're scans. They do not need to be fillable, so they are not fillable. They are, however, loaded in automatically from Matrix. Super, super handy. Check this out. I'm going to go back to Matrix. I'm going to go into the attachment list. And because Ash is awesome, she's got all of the disclosure information here. And it looks like I should have 1, 2 disclosure. I have 1, 2 disclosures in Instanet. So it will just pull whatever's there. In addition, I, as the office, have included some faith documents that are not Mohawk Valley. They are not fillable, but they are things like the franchise form. You click it, it shows you what it is. Here we go. If I'm not sure what this is, it's get a home inspection. It's just telling you this is what it is. You can click it. And if it's something that I don't want, there's no 3-dot menu here, but in the same exact location as what once was a 3-dot menu, there is a trash can. I can trash can if I say I don't want an item. I'm not going to trash can that one because I like using the get the home inspections form. But what I will trash can is a couple of other disclosures, because if we are aware of the listing office of the house that we're about to write an offer on, we'll know that Lori Frieden already has a franchise addendum sign and a smoke or a carbon monoxide and smoke detector disclosure sign. So I can delete these, because what I'll do is just have my buyer initial those versions of the form. That way there's just one for both parties. One less paper and what seems to be an endless stack of documents for poor Amy. Those file attachments are getting so big now. So anywho, this is our documents. This is everything that we need. And if I'm not sure what's in the document or the disclosures that come from the matrix, I can just, here we go. I'm going to scroll through them. Looks like Laura's got her agency here. Carbon monoxide, fair housing. She's got her lead and she's got her TRID all filled out. Look at how fancy that is. It's even Instanet sign or filled out. And then the other one, here's the property condition disclosure. Keep scrolling. Yep, everything's here. This is what I need. When I hit done, guys, this brings me to the dashboard. But we were already at the dashboard, right? So here is a good time to discuss the difference between the left menu and the right menu. Left menu here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? All these over here. All these menu items over here, similar but different. I'm going to jump around a little bit right now to paint the picture. So let's say that I wanted to see the contacts for this transaction. I could do that by clicking contacts over here. Clicking contacts over here gives me everybody in this transaction, but there's also a Rolodex little card over here, right? If I hover my mouse over it, it says it's contacts. And when I click it, you'll see it's literally the contacts for every single person, like I said, that I've ever worked with in Matrix, or I'm sorry, in Instanet. And it's the same thing. So I'm going to go back into my South Street Oriskany listing. And that's silly. I should have named it. I wasn't really thinking. I'm going to rename this by using the field up here. I'm going to rename this road that, or the house that we're writing an offer on, because that makes more sense to do. So now as we go back, aha, see what it does? So I was about to go back to the dashboard, but it yelled at me and said, you're about to leave the page. Would you like to save the changes? I never saved after I changed the name of the transaction. So I'm going to say, yes, I do want to save that. And it obviously saves what I'm saying or what I was working on. But notice what happens when I go to the dashboard on the left. My right side menu goes away. The right side menu is only a menu pertinent to and appears within a particular transaction. So again, I'll go into Turin Road, Rome. There goes that right menu appearing again. And I want to go into, let's go into something else. Let's go into forms. If I go into forms, it's just going to give me everything that we were just at a couple of steps ago in the wizard. But if I go to forms over here, which is indicated by this paper icon, this is the form library. This is all forms. So just be conscious where you are. I guess while we're on menus, very quickly before we get into filling out the contract, the left menu icons are fairly straightforward. They do not change. If you hover over any one of them, it will tell you exactly what it is. So if you know your terms, you'll know exactly what you're about to click on. The odometer, dashboard, home screen for everything. Transactions, that's the house. That's going to just be a list. If I click it, it's going to be a list of all the transactions that I'm working on right now. I've got a transaction going on in Main Street in Utica and Park Ave in Herkimer. And I wanted to go to that one that I was working on 3rd Ave in Ilion. And if I go to it, then I'm able to just, again, there's my right menu. And I can go in and look at the contacts. I wanted to remember who the listing agent was on that file, right? This is a test transaction, so it's not complete. But again, you click the house on the left, and you'll notice, guys, I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep cutting myself off. I constantly click the odometer just to get back to the homepage to go somewhere. It's a habit of mine. So you'll see, I'll just do exactly what I did previously. I went into my transaction list and I navigated to my alien pending offer that I have. I just wanted to go somewhere else, and I could have done it here. I could have done it here. Unless I'm doing it in the transaction, I'll never look here. Let's say I wanted to go and do a signing, but I wasn't sure how to get there. You can always just go back to the dashboard. This is your homepage. So from your homepage, if I wanted to do a signing, now I at least have a familiar progression. By the time you get to the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to get to a signing, a particular signing, a transaction, a particular form in the form library, everywhere. So if you ever see me just go back to the dashboard and you're like, why did he do that? It's kind of just a habit. And it's an easy way for me to get to the next place that I'm going to go. So I'll go back into my transaction for Turin Road, Rome. Right menu, point made, right? All this stuff just for this particular transaction. So as I finish my wizard and I press done, I'm loaded to this screen. 1, 2, 3, 4 small dialogues or small boxes that it's giving you. Personally, I've never used the checklist item status box. If that's something that you use, great. And maybe down the road, if I dig more into it and I see it's super valuable or something that I want to make a video on, maybe I'll do another one of those. But I primarily look at 1, 2, 3 boxes. Detail overview, nothing to click, just really something to be aware of that's there. It's just giving you all of the basic information on the house, on the transaction, I should say. Forms and documents. And really, it's just a concise thing on the dashboard of your list. If I wanted to see all the forms, more than just the 3 it's showing me, remember, more than one way to do everything. I can click go to forms here. Clicking go to forms there will only load the forms for this transaction. If I wanted to go back to the dashboard for this particular transaction, instead of going all the way back home and then going back into Turin Road, if I wanted to save myself just one click, if I was in forms, remember I just clicked go to forms. If I wanted to go to the dashboard for just this transaction, dashboard, over on the right, brings me right back to where I was. And if, again, I could click forms, that's the same thing as go to forms. Not to beat a dead horse, documents, same exact thing. Go to documents. will give you more than just what for. If you had more than that, right? If you had more that were featured here, you can just go to documents on the right. There it is. If I click documents, boom, got all 4 of them. So let's go back to the dashboard. Let's get doing something. We're learning lots about where we are and why and context. And now let's get to let's do some stuff. So in my forms box, every single time you load a transaction and you do the wizard, and it preloads forms for you, you will always get these forms in the same exact order. The purchase contract will always be at the bottom. It's just the order in which the forms are loaded on the transaction. The reason I point that out to you is because when anyone who's sat with me on a class like this, you're going to know, I tell you, go to the dash. Once you load the transaction, scroll to the bottom of your forms, click the purchase contract. It's because the purchase contract will always be the last item on your list. This list is sorted by, as a default, last modified date. Of course, to the second, including time. So the moment I click the purchase offer, the purchase offer to edit it, I'll move myself out of the way. I don't know where the best place for my screen is or for my face is right now. Let's put it right there. If I wanted to just go back to my dashboard for whatever reason, I can save and exit here. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to go back to where I just was. I need to simply make one change. I'm just going to remove 2 from the seller name. Now I'm going to save and exit. I needed to make a change, but what happens obviously is, look, modified by what, 13 minutes more recently than the previous form. So now it's gravitated to the top of the list. So we're going to start filling out the contract. That's the next step, really. Now that you kind of know some of the basics about the system, you're going to be here and look at what it's done. It's, oh, I spelled Anywhereville incorrectly. Oops. But it's put everything that I filled in previously in the contact information for my buyers, what was in there for the sellers from Lori when she listed it. It's all here. It's also all fillable. So I accidentally, and I already obviously demonstrated this. All of these fields are fillable. These are all changeable. I can go in and correct typos, and I don't know why it didn't put Orchard Ave, and it should have. So I'm going to go and put Orchard. I don't know why I put it there, actually. I don't like that. I'm going to remove this entirely. I'm going to put the street number here. And then in this bigger box, I'm going to put Orchard Ave. I could put the attorney if I know the attorney. Let's say they're working just with the bank attorney for easy example. I'm going to move myself over to the right because I don't know. We don't need to use that little shopping cart icon. So I'll hide myself over there. So as we scroll, we're going to see, and I'll kind of fill out some basic stuff. It might not be correct. I'm kind of just doing stuff for example as we go here. So it's going to be the city of Rome, and those checkboxes are all completely live. I can only check one. So if I accidentally do one after I pick city, it's going to change it. I'm going to do, again, everybody's different with their contracts, but just being aware of how the system works, know that it's going to place the zip code all the way on the right. It's kind of annoying for me. I don't like that it floats on the right, so I remove it. I put the entirety of the address in this line, and then you can write tax map number, blah, blah, blah. You can put MLS number, S12345, right? Whatever you want to put here. Items included. Now, this is where sometimes we get into, oops, I keep hitting my caps lock. We get into sometimes some writing, and especially when we're standing on the kitchen island, or we're at the Dunkin' Donuts because the guy followed us, or these ladies wanted to come back to our office because we could get them some refreshments and sit in the fancy fireplace room. If I'm filling this out in front of a person, then I'm writing all the appliances. So what I think is cool about doing it electronically is one, one easy computer thing we can employ is a copy paste. And so I can take these appliances, which are of course found on Matrix. I know exactly what's included. And I can go back to Instanet and simply paste. For those that don't know, just to clarify, because again, I'm learning how to teach through this platform also. It's right click for copy or Control C on a PC, and it's Command C on a Mac. And then if you're pasting, this isn't here, right? I'm going to click, make my cursor, and I'm going to right click for paste. And there we go. And it's Control V or Command V for Mac users for copy paste. Copy paste is cool. So as I continue through filling out the remainder of the contract, some worthy items of note is that I don't have to write as if I was writing a check. Oh, maybe I should look at what the price of the house is. $155. We're going to give her asking price on this one. And look, I do not have to remove 100,000 or type 155. It's putting all that in there for me. And then even cooler, I'm going to put $1,000 deposit. And what does it do? It does my math for me. What I do need to be aware of, though, as I continue through the contract, I'm not leaving blanks. I'm just, kind of moving my way on through here. It will not calculate your seller concessions automatically for you. So should you have seller concessions, and as we know, let's say that this VA buyer is going to need 6% of his seller concessions, we can add 9,300 to our 155 asking price, which will be the quote net to seller, which gives me 164,300. And I can just add that right here. 164,300. Perfect. It's doing all of that updating for me. I'm ready to rock. Financing contingencies, I will specify, of course, my VA loan. I can put letters in here. I can put numbers in here, not specifically a number field. However, be aware there is a $sign. So it's a good idea sometimes to put numbers. But how you fill your contract out, not what this class is. This class is that you can put letters and numbers here at the same time. Anything you see that indicates a date might have this calendar icon next to it. And if you could click the calendar, usually a lot of people are going to put a period of days from the offer date in this particular field. Today's December 2nd. So if, let's say, I'm calculating 30 days, real easy for me to just know that that's January 2nd. But what if I'm calculating 3 weeks? If I'm calculating 3 weeks, I can, with the icon, open the little calendar and do 1, 2, 3. Know that that's the 23rd, and it just fills everything in for me. Super cool. Again, be aware, you can't double click on one of the checkboxes for things like survey, because it's only going to let you pick one. As far as things that are different that we haven't already covered, I mean, again, these are checkboxes, not the same as the other ones. You can check as many of these as you'd like. Got another date field right there, easy enough. And these, I mean, the logic makes sense, right? You're not gonna be able to intend and not intend to occupy as your residence. It's either you do or you don't. So as we move through the last page of the contract, what we'll notice is that, again, this is a trend in Authentisign, this being the signing tool. We're kind of in the signing tool, but this is technically still Instanet. It's putting the names of the clients underneath the signing lines. I don't do that for sellers if I'm the purchasing agent or the buyer's agent, and I don't do it for the buyer if I'm the seller's agent. I don't know how many use cases there are for that, but I mind to my own clients. So I'm going to remove that. personally from my contract. You can put your name here if you want. Again, it gives you the option. Technically, you can't witness a contract if it's being signed electronically. So I leave that blank. And we're also not technically a witness state. So even in person, that's not a required signature. So we've done everything that we need to do to fill out this form. Wonderful. Instead of saving and exiting, which I can totally do, which will bring me back to the dashboard. From there, I can scroll in my forms little dialog box and I can click purchase contract addenda, which I know because I set the template up that it's the second document or form, that it's the second form. There's a shortcut for that, which is right up at the top here under the transaction forms button. If I click transaction forms, it will load a static list, meaning the order of documents doesn't change. In the same way that the purchase contract is at the bottom by default in the transaction dashboard, it's by default going to be at the top here. The difference is the list on the dashboard is sortable. The default sort order is the last time that you touched one of the things. The sort order here is not able to be changed. Sorry, I had to actually verify that there wasn't an icon to sort here. You can't change the sort order of these forms. This is just the order that they were loaded in. So look, my modified date for my contract is 157. I knew that. But my contract is 131. That's fine. This is just not going to change. I love that for this particular facet of contract filling because it's really easy for me to just go into the second form, do all of my filling in, blah, 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 and I'm not going to take as much time with this one, right? I'm just going to, I'm filling out. I'm pretty sure that these are all just text. I don't think there's anything different on the addenda. And dates, there's text and dates, excuse me. Oh, and there's checks too. So I guess I stand corrected. There's nothing that's super rocket science-y about the addenda. It's all the same stuff, guys. Again, just be aware of at the bottom here, I'm going to remove that seller thing. And even if I know how a form appears, even if I've done it 100 times, I still scroll through every page and look at every single field because things change. Files are updated. The reason why these are pre-filled in is something we're going to cover a bit later in the training, but that can change. These can change. So if one does, just be looking at all of the forms that you're filling out, anything that you're sending to a client for a signature, do some due diligence and just scroll through it and make sure that it's up to snuff, So I'm done with my addenda. I'm going to go back into my transaction forms menu. And here we go. The order didn't change. I'm ready to rock with number 3. When I click number 3, I'm going to just scroll through. And the majority of these, short of the contract and addenda, are simple. They're going to take you a minute or two to fill out in their entirety. David. Karina, oops, spell your name correctly. Coldwell. Oh, and I've actually seen, again, something that's a cool computer thing. I've typed Coldwell Banker Faith Properties in this field before. So it knows. You might type it again. It's going to save it for me. As I go through, and I always have the conversation about dual agency, and I'm just going to continue filling out the form with Johnny. I'll scroll so that you can see this. I'm actually going to remove that. Here we go. Watch this. Johnny Appleseed. And this is a drop-down box. There's that little caret arrow there. And Jane Appleseed. See what it's doing on the lines below? It's putting their names for me. I can't remove those. Even if I wanted to, let's say that you're somebody who fills out your contract, you just like the signature, you don't want the name to be under the line. You can remove it for the contract, the addenda, and most forms. You cannot remove it for this. If you do try and do that, it will remove whatever's here. So you're just going to have to live with it for this one form. Oh, well. filled out in its entirety, good to go. Transaction forms. And as you'll notice, I'm not saving these documents. That's because every time I save a document, or every time I make a change to a document, and then I use transaction forms, the menu, to go to another, it saves it by default. I don't have to click the button. Doesn't hurt. You can't oversave. There's no such thing as too much save. So you could always go in and file, save. And you don't want to save as a PDF. It's just going to download this unfilled or unsigned form. But you can file, save, and then just save it. It'll give you a notification here. If I move my face, form saved, it's going to let you know that it did that. As I go to transaction forms, I'm just going to go to my fourth form. This is the last one I'll demonstrate for you. You guys will go through every one of these. But for me, for the demonstration, I just want to show you. Lori's really fancy because she did her TRID on Instanet. Well, so can you. It's really easy to do that. It knows who the purchaser side is because I am a party to this transaction. I'm a contact to this transaction. I'm the buyer's agent. And then Lori, as we loaded in from Matrix, is the seller's agent. So she's here on seller side. It knows our license number. It knows all of our MLS info. So it puts it there for us. Don't got to fill anything out. So this is my last form. I'm on the VA option clause and I filled everything in. Woohoo. All this, everything's ready to rock. So now I'm ready to sign. I'm going to put together, I'm going to arrange all of my forms and documents, and I'm going to get signed in. So I do this, again, multiple ways, multiple different ways to do this. You can click the pen up at the top. You can send to new Authentisign. When you do that, it will just open the Authentisign 2.0. No longer, and I don't even really want to harp on it too much because for anybody that's watching this after tomorrow, there will be no old Instanet. They will have no point of reference for how it used to be. But it used to be a little bit clunkier. There was an additional page and you had to pick the people and the order and all of this, and then it would finally load you into being able to see the documents and you can make the changes. So now what they've done, if they've just streamlined the process for everything is just going to be on one screen, on one tool. So I'm not going to use this signing. I'm going to go another way to do the signing because there's more than one way. And there's no wrong way. This might be the easiest way. And sometimes I actually think that it is the easiest way, is to just click the pen and say, I'm ready to sign. And it launches you right into a signing. If I'm going to hit back here and I'm going to just hit, I'll hit save so that I can show you something else as we go. So when I hit back, it's just going to bring me to, well, it's going to bring me to the signings list. We haven't been here yet. Where we haven't, this is the signings list for this transaction. So to illustrate that, I'm going to go to the dashboard in the transaction. The place after I went back, it brought me to was here, which is the signings menu. See how I just had that one option there? It says it was created 2 minutes ago, modified this minute. This is where we just were. What I can do, in addition to pressing the pen when I'm within a form, so let's say I'm going to go right back into that form as if I was when I had first illustrated that. So instead of clicking the pen, now I want to create a new signing. I'm going to do it a different way. I can save exit. And it just brings me back to, it might bring me back to the forms list, which is here, right? This is all the forms within this transaction. It might bring me to the dashboard for this transaction. But by clicking save exit, it's going to bring you out of the edit tool for the forms. And it's going to bring you into a place that you can get to signing. And this is where I was going to show you is the second way that you can begin signing a document. The reason why I want you to know that this exists is because, sure, this particular class is for starting from start to, or from writing a contract from start to finish. But let's say you ever needed to go in and 7836 Turin Road is a house that you signed, or is an offer that you signed previously, and you just wanted to quickly write up a removal of contingency form or something and get that one signed quick. Well, you can click the pen after you're done with that form, or you can, from this dashboard, go right into signings and you can add another signing. And that's how we're going to do this. We're going to add another signing. When I do that, really the only difference is it's giving me the opportunity here before I start to name the signing. The signing name is what the client will see in the email when they get it from you that requests their signature. It's something I typically try and make clear, concise, and short. So I gravitate to usually something containing the address of the house and then what it is. This is a purchase offer. So I quite simply will write 7836 Turin Road purchase offer. You can write purchase agreement, purchase contract. You can write Turin Road contract for sale. You can write whatever you want. Be aware that if you do it when you're in a specific form, watch what happens. I'm just going to click this signing to bring me back into that same signing. It's real easy to change the name. Edit signing name. If I hover over the name, it's right up here. But look what it did. The name of the signing is the address dash Mohawk dash VA option clause. For those familiar with Instanet form names, Mohawk-VA option clause is just the way that the form is categorized within the form library. 7836 Turin Road, Rome is the name of my transaction. So it appends transaction name and name of form by default. And that's what it names. I don't think that that's super, I don't want to leave that name if I'm adding more forms to this signing. I want to make that a more clear file name for Johnny and Jane as they're about to field this email and sign this, because they're not familiar with Instanet. They don't know anything about form libraries and documents and Authentisigns. And I'm just going to call this quite simply Turin Road. You can call it Turin Road Rome. You can. I usually will leave that off. Purchase offer. So I'm going to move me down to the bottom just so that we have a better view of the Authentisign drawer. That was that term I said, keep in the back of your mind. I had it mislabeled on the slide, but this is what we're calling the drawer. This is all the stuff you're only going to see if you're doing a signing. That's it. Starting from the top, signers, self-explanatory. Right now, there's nobody. They know who we're signing for. So we're going to add participants. And as we add participants, I'm going to add myself. Of course, I know that there is, if the house is built before 1978, at least one for me to sign. As I mentioned, when you're doing electronic signatures, you can't actually witness. So a lot of times you'll see them blank on electronic form or on electronic contracts. And even if it's in person, sometimes you'll see that blank. So if it's a newer house, 1979 or newer, you actually won't have any signing. And if you select yourself as a signer, Authentisign won't let you send the file out for signatures if there's a participant or a signer with 0 blocks assigned or 0 tasks, things to do on the document. It's going to say, hey, Dave Macrina doesn't have anything to do, either add something for him to do or remove him from the transaction entirely. And I'll show you how to add and remove people. So let's add ourselves here. Dave Macrina, here's my email. It's just loaded right from Matrix. And again, it knows not only that I'm a remote signer, but I should add myself to the transaction. That's a no-brainer. But actually, it knows I am a transaction participant already. So I should be able to, if I go add participants, I can add from transaction. guys, add from transaction. This is why in step 3, we add all of the contacts. If I add from transaction, it gives me anybody I need. Dan McCrean, Johnny Appleseed, Jane Appleseed. We are all remote signers. That is the only option you're ever going to need if someone's signing something. Now, I'll tell you, there are other types of signers, because that's what it's called, right? When I say signer, I mean, look, this is what it's called. Let's call them participants. There are other types of participants that you can use. We'll go over them briefly. These guys are all signing. But let's say I wanted to add, I'm going to add from my contacts, because I've added them previously, a reviewer. This is effectively a CC. But you see, when I add them, I'm going to say remote signer. I'm actually going to use the dropdown. I'm just going to use CC. In full disclosure, guys, I don't know the difference between reviewer and CC. In 2.0, oh, actually, this is the first time I'm selecting CC only on 2.0. It just means that apparently you're emailed at the end. That's great. I wonder what happens if I click reviewer, what it's going to tell me. It's probably going to give you a, if I had to guess, if you're a reviewer, it's simply going to send you a link that says there's a document that's out for signature. And then when everybody signs it, maybe it will send you a copy by default. But then again, that sounds exactly like what CC does. So like I said, I don't know. I'm just because I'm the guy that does tech at the office. I don't know everything about everything. So that one, I haven't got anything for you. If I had to make an executive decision on the spot, I'm using CC. I'll show you at the end when we do a signing, how easy it is to just, once you have the signed document, send it over to somebody so that they can look at it. It's very easy to do that. So we've got all of our participants. Let's call them participants. So I'm done with my signers block. I can go to, oh, wait a minute. What is this red exclamation? Well, someone was going too fast on contacts step 3. And also it doesn't require it when you're adding them as a contact. And I guess technically it makes sense. You don't, when you add someone to a transaction, necessarily need to intend on emailing them anything, let alone a signature. So here, I'm doing something in Authentisign for signing. It's going to need an email for me to send to sign it. So I always just use my test one because it's a really easy one for me. So I'll use my test Gmail account. They're the buyer, and I'm going to update the transaction contact, which will just add this email into their contact record within the transaction. They're still a remote signer. And by the way, all this customized stuff, I actually ignore this entirely. You do not need to worry about if someone has a custom signature or custom initials. And if they do, you've probably discussed it with them, and that's probably what their first name and last name is in their contact. Or if they're really particular about it, they can change it when they get the notification to sign. And I can show you that. Actually, you know what? Let me use a different email just so that I can illustrate. How do I do this? I can use this email. Yeah. So just so that you can illustrate what it looks like. And let me make sure I've never done, I know I've never done one on the wrong email. You'll know exactly what it looks like when a first time, never seen Instanet client gets this email and what it looks like. Little known fact about e-signatures is that, and I'm going to right click for copy here, you can use the same email for 2 people. Because sometimes 2 parties will share an email because they live in the same house, or one of them really doesn't use email for anything other than, I don't know, bills or doing something like this, or coupons from Kohl's, I don't know. So you can use the same email. It makes no difference at all. Here you go. Johnny and Jane, they're all set. I have no red exclamations. I'm ready to go. Map signers, I told you that I would cover. And I think I was in the middle of a sentence and I actually clicked through it. I'm going to click it again so that you can see. Look what it's done. Buyer 1. It's saying it's Johnny Appleseed. It must know that it's Johnny. And it's the reason it knows it's Johnny is because Johnny is a buyer. That's the role of Johnny. If I close this window and I open back up Johnny's participant block here, his details, his role as a buyer. If I change him to landlord and I press save, and then I go back to map signers, watch what happens. No more Johnny, there's just Jane. Now I could select Johnny manually. And if I assign signature blocks, this is a little sneak preview, but you're seeing live what's happening here. It's adding both Johnny and Jane because they're now both buyers. This is changing them from landlord to buyer. So that's important. It does a lot of the work for you. It's placing these signature blocks, these auto date blocks, right? So there we go. Signers in a nutshell, fairly self-explanatory. There's a little nuance there though, so I hope I covered enough context. In the drawer, next we have docs. Docs are the papers. I call them papers because it's forms and documents. I don't even like that they called it docs. I just honestly don't know what I would have called it. We're going to add a document or form. When we add a document or form, if we were within a transaction when we launched the signing, your default tab is my transaction. If you launch a signing and you are launching the signing from the home dashboard or from somewhere that's not a transaction, you will not get this option for my transaction because you weren't in one. So you don't have one that's my transaction right now. So you would have upload import. You would have my files. One of the reasons why I think it's important for you to keep a transaction. All of your documents are right here. Watch how simple this is. Boom, boom. I'm killing it. I'm rocking out. Yeah, one more. All right, there we go. I've added all my documents. Perfect. I personally am really particular about how documents are organized. What I mean by that is if anybody ever sent me a contract and their TRID was in the middle of their contract packet, I would be confused. And I would say, that's not how I arrange my contracts. I like that to be a little bit more what I think is continuity with the transaction. So I'm going to actually take some of these documents and you see, I can't, unfortunately, I can't zoom in. So I hope you can see there's 6 dots here right on the screen. The 6 dots, when I hover over them, I get a crosshair. Just means I can move this thing. So if I click with my left clicker and drag, I can drag up or I can drag down. I'm going to drag all the way down on this one. And when I let go, somewhere to the bottom, it's just going to place it. Hopefully it guesses exactly where you wanted it to go, but it might do this, right, where it takes the thing and I wanted it to be last, but it accidentally sneaks. Oh, it actually did at that time. I wanted it to try and sneak it as like, so this one is supposed to be last and it accidentally goes as 9. Well, you can do that. Like going 1 to 1, they're pretty easy to do. If you're jumping a huge chunk, you might miss one, no biggie. But again, just kind of be aware that this is something that you can do. You can replace you can rename the document. If you just want to call this purchase contract because you can't stand seeing Mohawk everywhere, do it. Rename it, save it. Now it's called purchase contract. Addenda. I didn't realize that was the addenda. So for all of these, so I'm just gonna, I don't know why my face keeps floating. I feel like I'm floating all over the place here. So I'm just gonna do a rough reorder of these. Like I'm going to stick TRID at the bottom. I like my VA to be more towards the top. I like my fair housing and agency disclosure to be back to back. My escalation clause, I want that to go right after the contract. Let's say all my disclosures, I like to get the home inspection thing to be close to the top. I've organized. Great. I'm going to hit save. There's all my reordered documents. Oh, and also, I'm just going to do this real quick. If I wanted to make purchase contract, I know I wanted to make it number 2. I can just hit number 2 and either press enter or just click away and hit 1 and just click off. And it just makes purchase contract number 1. So just something to know. Next in the drawer, this is the goods. We're getting to the tools now. So tools are where we do signing blocks, initial blocks. This is where we do the check boxes, and we can do the dates, all that fun stuff. So as we go here, I don't know, maybe this is the best place for my face. So as we go, I do notice, right? Buyer, there's Johnny and Jane. Buyer, right? The whole contract. It's taken all of the obviously things that I've marked on to or that I filled out onto the contract itself. And then it's also overlaid some signing and initial blocks that I would have otherwise had to drag myself. But because it knows that Johnny is buyer 1 and Jane is buyer 2, and remember, I'm real quick because again, Instanet 2.0, really, really cool. You can just navigate between things in the drawer. I'm just gonna go really back to signers quickly. I just want to see, again, look what I did. Buyer 1, buyer 2. I even can select Dave McCreen as the selling agent. And it will assign signature blocks for me where it sees fit. Now, asterisk. Just because you see, and I don't know if this is because the logic doesn't make sense because of what I mentioned earlier about it being an electronic contract, you can't witness it. But I don't know where it put my, oh yeah, so here we go, escalation clause. So the way that this one is set up in the background is that it knows that the selling agent is always going to be signing the escalation clause. Boom, it's already put my signature block there. Be aware also, as a little, for you tech whippersnappers that like to know the latest, and like I'm talking to like people like Lori Hamlin, who you always want to know the latest and what you can do next, and the next level. Next level, guys, you can create your own system mappings, or actually, I don't know if I can do that as the office, or if you guys can do that as agents. I think it's you as agents can set up your mappings for your own documents. That's really cool. So that if it's annoying every time that you have to drag a date field here, you can set up a document, or you could set up this contract to say, whenever there's a contract and there's a buyer 1, put a date here. You could tell it same exact thing that it does here. You can just add a date because it's not doing that automatically for another class. But again, know it's there. So we're scrolling. Again, I'm back in tools. Oops, I'm back in tools. And this is where I've already filled everything out. It's time to actually do signatures. So as I go, there's not really a whole lot for me to do in the contract except that date. So what I might do is go to, and here's some context behind the signer actions versus signer fields. You know how they're all color coded? Again, upgrade 2.0, love the color code. It's handy to know the participant that the auto date is linked to. So for those familiar with how Instanet works, you can create an auto date, and the auto date is going to be linked to a particular client. So if I have 2 buyers, the auto date is linked to 1 buyer or one participant. The one participant is going to potentially sign after the second participant. They can sign whenever they want. So if the date is linked to buyer 1 and buyer 2 goes in to sign, they're not going to see a date there because the auto date field is linked to this guy, Johnny. Johnny hasn't signed yet. Jane's going to see this date field as being completely blank. Whether that's a problem or not, I personally found a little workaround for that, which is, and you have to be very careful with this because my workaround is I can set the auto date as myself. the selling agent, and the selling agent knows when he's going to sign, or she. And if I know when I'm going to sign, I know that if it's immediately, whenever either of these guys are going to go sign their contract, they're going to see a date there. However, God forbid, both of those guys don't get a chance to sign it until tomorrow, then neither date linked to the buyer's signatures is the same as the date on the contract itself. So know your client, know your situation. It's a potential workaround for you. Again, not how to teach contract, or not how to fill out contracts. Or no, what I'm trying to say is this class isn't for philosophy and contract values and ethics, and right, like this is a thing that's possible. If you know for 100% fact your client's going to go home and sign it, and you want to make sure they see a date field there, that's an option for you. If you ever want to change a participant's link to a particular field, you can do that. See what I did there? I just went and dropped down. I can pick anybody for that. Something else that's cool is the copy paste feature of Authentisign. So something that I do, and as we're scrolling, I'm going to go down to the addenda because it's the best place to use this as an example. So check this out. We're going to do a home inspection. We know we are. But we're not going to do a pest. We never intended on doing a pest. And we're also not intending on both choosing and waiving a home inspection, because that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But what Instanet has done, it has decided that it is less inundated for you to drag and drag and drag and resize and resize. It's just going to put both, or as many as you have, up to 2 initial blocks there. And if you want to delete them because you're doing that contingency, perfect. Hit the trash can. If you're not doing that contingency and you're waiving it, perfect. Hit the trash can. Keep scrolling. We're going to do a radon. So we're going to hit the trash can on these. We are an FHA. I'm sorry, we are a VA buyer. And so we didn't mean to accidentally delete that initial block. Control Z does not work. I'm learning this currently, but what you can do is you can just do one of these guys. Done. We're going to keep going. See how much simpler this is, right, than having to actually recreate each one of them as needed, because every one of these lines is going to need an initial. So it doesn't make sense for it to be the other way. This is the way that makes sense. My whole entire addenda has appropriate initial blocks throughout the whole thing. That was about 25 seconds, including me making a mistake. It would have taken me way longer than that if I was dragging, dropping, and resizing all of those initials for both buyers. So again, auto date field here, we're rocking. So this one, this is a document. This is a faith document. Now, it is something that you can find on the forms library. I think you can find it on the forms library. I may be wrong on that. If you can't, we should probably look into getting it added. But regardless, this isn't fillable here. I can't click here, right? I'm clicking. It's not allowing me to fill anything in. So here's where I briefly touched on this as the last term for Authentisign, which is markup. Markup are things that we do as the agent. I might need to highlight something. I might need to do a strike through if I'm doing a price adjustment on page 2 or something. If I would like to create a text box, that is an option. I can click text box. And when I see the blue highlight around it, I just click anywhere in the area that I want my text box to be. I click, it creates a box. It says enter text. I'm typing, nothing's happening. I need to click enter text. Once I click enter text, now I can type, right? So here we go, Johnny and Jane, Appleseed. I can click the text box. I see 2, they're very faint. If you can't see them, I promise they are there. Two small, thin blue boxes. If I hover over the box, it gives me two arrows left and right. It allows me to drag and resize the text box. If I need to, I can click in the text box and enter for another line. So if I want to do something like 123 Main Street. Oh, I'm sorry. Nope. This this is an actual house we're selling. I think it was 7863 turn. There's our example. Rome, NY, 13440. And that, well, I mean, that works. Ask me how Neurotic Dave likes that. He's going to tell you he doesn't love it. So instead, here's a tech thing for you. We're going to highlight this text. Oops. We're going to highlight this text. See, it doesn't work perfectly even for me sometimes. I'm going to delete that text. And instead of typing it there, I'm going to create a new text box. 7863, Sherman Road, Rome, New York, 13440. I'm not going to let it go on two lines. I'll just resize that. And here, look at this. I can even turn it to the left or right, as well as make it bigger or smaller. I point that out because, again, I'm very OCD. So on those disclosures that scan 2 degrees this way, you can tilt your text like 2 degrees that way so that it fits straight on the line and is just as off kilter as everything else. I'm not going to do that here. My neurotices will not allow for it. So we are going to make that 0 degrees. Oh, remember over here, I always forget about this. There's this little, because it's a contract and it doesn't need to be fancy. But if I ever needed to, you can either highlight all the text, or if you don't want to be annoyed by it, you could just click the box. As long as you're highlighted around the box, it's going to show you the text markup options. I can make it bold. I can italicize the font. I can center it, which will be more pronounced if I do that. I can actually change the font family. I can make it a different color. I can make it huge. I can make it teeny tiny. So whatever you want to do, again, it's all on one screen. In the old system, it was just a bit clunkier, right? All of these things may or may not have been possible. Like all the markup stuff was, you could still make bold and italics and different sizes. It just wasn't as intuitive for us to use. You would have to like right click it, and it was really finicky where you place the mouse. It was doable, but not super user friendly. So instead, they incorporated it into this little side menu. So as we keep going, I guess I definitely want to cover the rest of the signer actions, fields, and markup. So sign here, self-explanatory. I'm dragging a seller, or I'm dragging a signing block. And if I click the block, it's going to allow me to make it bigger, smaller from here, as well as bigger or smaller from here. I'm going to be able to make it required or optional. I don't know why you would drag a text signature block and make it optional. If it's optional, don't put it. Or talk with them about it, but what it is, and then give them, oh, okay, you want me to put that in there? Okay, I'm going to put that in there. I don't know. That's how I would do it. Once you start getting into optional fields for someone who's never even heard of Authentisign, here's where we start. Here's where I start getting lots of calls. Dave, my client doesn't know how to do the thing. So stick with just required, contract signatures, contract initials, dates, all the goods. These are things that, again, like I'm not personally going to do a whole lot of the extra bells and whistles on the signature block. On the initial block, you can add like appends, little like, I'm calling them appends because they attach directly to, but you can call them whatever you want to call them. I'm not using them a whole lot. If I need a date, I'm going to drag a date. If I need a time, I'm going to drag a time. I've never used a time. Let's see, what else do I got here? Checkbox, self-explanatory. It is a required box that is so that you, as the client, have to check. It is going to probably be most relevant on a friendly state form, I should say federal form, that we are going to probably have a discussion with our client before we're sending for signatures. But there's where your checkbox would go. If you insist upon it, there is a, I don't even like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. But if you have to, there's your choices. So you could do one or you could do the other. That's how that works. I'll leave it there. So when I demonstrate the signing itself, when I field it from my email, you'll be able to actually see what it looks like for the client. Let's see what else. We've got signer field's email address. I mean, I don't know why I've never had to specify a client's email ever. So honestly, I don't even know what that is. So I'm going to skip email. I don't know what dropdown is. I've never used it. So I'm going to skip that. Initial pages. I don't know. You may or may not have a use case for that. If you click initial pages, it's just going to bulk add small, medium, or large initials on the left, center, or right, top or bottom of any of the documents that you check here for any of the signers that you check here. I hope that makes sense. Because to me, really the use case for this is going to be, do you want somebody to initial every page of the property condition disclosure to show that they saw all 6 pages? Do you want somebody to initial the MLS pages or the copy of the deposit check or the pre-qual, the proof of funds, those things that don't necessarily have a initial block that's called for? And I've done it myself in the past, right? You have somebody initial I have my seller initial the proof of funds or the pre-qual so that we can acknowledge that they see it. I've had the seller and sellers, or I've had the seller initial the MLS realtor view, which indicates the co-broke amount. If that's something that tickles your fancy, you've got the option to do that in bulk for so that you don't have to drag everybody individually. Signer fields we covered. Markup, I mean, I don't know. Self-explanatory, I think. Highlight, if you click highlight, your mouse is a highlighter. I'm clicking and holding and not letting go right now. It's allowing me to create what's like a highlight box. So when I let go, it creates it as the given size. From there, oh, okay. So if it's not going to let me to click and drag it, because look, I'm still highlighted on the highlight tool. So if I try and drag any one of these, it's just going to create more of them. So instead, just unhighlight off of, or I should say, unselect the highlight markup tool, which will allow you to click, delete, but you can also change the color. You can change the opacity. You can make it bigger and smaller and perfectly sized. And say, hey, buyer, you have to sign here. Well, I mean, I would put that there. Right? So maybe you get an offer from a buyer's agent and they missed a couple of, you get an offer from a buyer's agent, you're the listing agent, and you're going to have your sellers sign the offer electronically. Not this topic, but here's where you might use the highlight tool. Hey, buyer's agent, you accidentally missed a field here that you need to sign or your client needs to sign. Strike through, self-explanatory. You click strike through, it highlights the tool. Your mouse is now a pen. Click and drag, do not let go. And if you do that, it will allow you however long you want to make it. Once I let go, I'm going to keep dragging. As I let go, boom. Makes it as long as I want to make it. Same thing. I cannot move the additional, or I can't move the first strike through. I can only create more unless I unselect the strike through tool. Once I do that, it gives me back my mouse. I can click, delete. Oh, and also I can click and duplicate. I keep forgetting to mention that you could just duplicate things. That's handy for if I have, as I scroll obnoxiously, back to the disclosure, to the addenda. Really handy for the addenda. Duplicate, duplicate, duplicate. And I can keep doing that. I can also right-click for copy, right-click for paste, right-click for paste, right-click for paste. The center of the box, the initial box or the signing box, is where the pointer of your mouse is. So look exactly where my little red dot is there. I'm going to try and, oh, I'm sorry. No, I stand corrected. It is the top left corner. That is where the box goes. So I click top left-hand corner. There it is. It goes right there at the top. Why this is even more handy is because if you're using Control V for paste, I could be here. Watch. I'm just going to make sure my mouse is somewhere in where I think is the top left-hand corner of what the initial block would look like if it was there. That's a little mini move. Whereas if I'm here, then I got to drag it. And then I scroll to the next page. And then I paste. I got to drag it. So once you get real good, you're going to be like this. Boom, boom, boom. You're going to be firing them off all over the place. That's all Control V for paste. I can also, that's why I showed you this. I can literally copy paste an initial or signature block for the whole entire contract and then just change the person. So here we go. I'm going to change half of these to Johnny. They're all just right next to each other, right? Imagine these as all the contingencies. I can make them all Jane, and then I can, and then I can just change them all to Johnny as I go here. So there's some shortcuts for you when using some of the signer fields and signer actions. Other than that, I mean, I've never used freehand, I've never used lined, I've never used ellipse. So we can skip those. As we move out of the three main tools, I think, in the drawer, layouts I've never used, but remember, this is where you can add layouts to particular forms of documents, if that's something that you want to dig into. Layouts for like where the initial and the signature blocks go. By default, when you load into assigning, there's where you would do that in layout options. Options themselves, you can change the name of the signing. This is a new thing. You can actually expire the signing out. It's not 2 weeks from now, right? That's 2000. Oh yeah, it is it's 1 month from now. You get at the end of the day. Reminders, you can set a reminder. Wow, could this get annoying? But I guess if you need it, you could set a reminder to anyone who has not signed your document that requires signature for every day at 9 a.m. or every other day at 11 a.m. I honestly don't even know what that is. You could actually, this I think is a new thing, you can bulk clear all the signing fields and all the markups that you've done on the entire, everything that you've done so far in this particular signing can be done all in bulk. So that's options. So here we go. We're scrolling all the way down to the bottom. We have everything that we need. Signatures placed, strike throughs done, highlights lighted, and we're ready to sign. The last step to get it to signature, hit next up the top right-hand corner. And it's literally just going to ask you two things. Or actually, it's technically going to ask you one thing. It's going to ask you if you want to customize the invite or if you just want to send it as is. It automatically expires. I mean, you could probably bump that. Like, If you really didn't want it to expire, oh, you can't do any later than 2020. Oh, okay. So I don't know. It's not letting me go past January 2022. If you really wanted to, there you go. That's as much as you, that's as late as you can make it. I'm just going to send it. And this is going to actually show you exactly what it looks like within a real use case scenario. But while we're waiting for that email to arrive, here's the signings menu. The signings menu, right now you see an old one for classic, but right now we're just doing new. For this transaction, because that's where we are, you always know you're in a transaction if you see the address up at the top. You might not see a house, because if you just wrote the name but you didn't link it to the MLS, it won't pull any photos. There's no photos to pull if you just call it 123 Main Street. But if you link it to, if you import data and use Alliance MLS and you put the number in, you should probably see a house there. So that's how you know you're in a transaction. So we're in transaction signings. This is where I was saying it's really easy to be able to just quick forward over to somebody else if they need to, if they need a copy. So you see how test reviewer is then in there. He's going to get a CC. But really, see if I say, oh, I might actually have to, I think I actually have to sign it first. So let's do this. Let's go into, we'll send and receive all folders. Did I get it in Rome yet? Here it is. Look, so this is what's cool. Hello, Johnny. Dave wants a signature from you. Here's the signing name. Remember, this is what it looks like to the client. Remember, this is what it looks like to the client. It's also saying, I'll move myself up here. You will be required to confirm your identity, blah, 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 sent to you by Dan McCree, Cold Your Faith Properties. And then you press start signing. This is for Johnny. When Johnny presses start signing, he has to acknowledge. And this is what he sees. Progress, 0%. He has to start. And to start, press start. To initial, to sign, to do whatever, you got to click it. You got to click the thing. If you just keep clicking next, it's just cycling you through all of the available things. But, and this is going to be really annoying because I'm going to have to zoom all the way back. Nope. Oh, come on. There we go. So now we're back at the top. So got to click at the side. So click and look what it prompts me immediately. Custom signature, custom initial. If they want to do this, they can. I always tell people don't do it. Don't create your own. Don't draw. Don't upload. Just set it. It's just a normal. And keep clicking. Look at what's happening on my progress bars. I'm clicking. Here we go. I'm clicking. See how these are all initial, or these are all optional? That's what appears on the addenda. So, and I guess I didn't cover that, but you can go back and remove these. You can also just have them accept everything, right? Accept. So this is what it looks like if it's an optional initial. This is what it looks like if it's just a required initial. You click it, it's done. So this will keep going, almost there. So we're getting close, 90%. So we keep going. So here's that radio button. This is just so that you can see. So he has an option. You can do one or the other. They new upgrade, then they made it really obvious. They said you're almost done. You ever got a call from a client if you've done e-signatures before? They're like, oh, I sent it back to you and you're saying I didn't get an email. Definitely didn't send it back to me. This is why they never press complete signing. They made it so that you basically can't not press it now. When you've completed your signing, you obviously got your confirmation. You're good. Green check, congratulations. You got a confirmation number. Cool. So as we navigate back, I do want to show you that here. Look, there's Johnny. And then there's also Jane. Now, Johnny and Jane, as we can see, are using the same email. So I'm going to go in as Jane now. And here I go. Accept. Oh, wow, 32. All right, well, I'll be fast. I didn't really realize that as I was creating all of these, that it would do all, that it would take me so long to go through and check all these. So I'll be very fast. Because I don't want to skip this part. Oh, I forgot I did this. I don't want to skip this part because I want to show you all the confirmation emails, what it looks like when you actually will get it back. Come on. Almost. Oh, by the way. Oh, come on, go back. This is an optional initial. So if she accidentally didn't mean to, Jane wanted to actually decline that initial, she could decline it. It comes up as a red X. She accepts it. I don't like that it comes up as a red X if she accepts it, but it's clickable. Let's go back and change your mind. Excuse me. Done. So now we're done. We're going to complete the signing. Another confirmation page. So bear with me as I now going to go into my email. I'm going to open a new window. And let's see. I should be getting a bunch of these confirmations. Yep. So here's what it looks like when I get a confirmation. So it's going to say, action is taking place on your signing. It's going to say Johnny Appleseed accepted the document. Then I get another one, and it says Jane Appleseed has accepted my document. But what I also got as the listing agent, or I'm sorry, as the selling agent is a request to start signing, because I had at least one initial block on there, or signature block. I think it was the escalation clause. So I'll go and here I rock. Yep, escalation clause. I've done my signing. Continue. I can close all these windows now. Excuse me. Oh my gosh. And now this is what I wanted to show you. So look, the signing is complete. This goes to Jane and to Johnny, so they can go and get a copy of all the signed documents easily. This is for the client. They've got this right in their email. They can download it and keep it for their files. It also, oh, I'm sorry, no, that I don't know which one I was in. Both, technically, right? You see signing complete for Johnny, signing complete for Jane, and then signing complete for Dave. All three parties that signed get emails, or will get emails, because you as the selling agent will also get one. It will say signed and completed. It's the same exact message. It literally just says signing has been successfully reviewed and signed by all parties, and it gives you a link. Something else worthy of mention is what I was trying to show you before. When you go back into, I just went back into Instanet, and here I am, I'm going into the signing that I was just working on. It's now completed. Now that it's completed, what I was looking for before was this button that says forward documents. I can easily forward a document to anyone. Let's forward the document to Utica at Central New York, just to do so. Then when we do that, oh, and we can view the signed PDF from here. There we go. Signatures and everything looks good. We can view the certificates if we want, and we can copy to a cloud. I don't know what that is, but I'm going to gravitate to either downloading it myself and keeping it on my computer where I keep all my files, or just storing it in Authentisign itself. More, it's just going to be you can duplicate the signing itself, or you could delete the signing entirely. So two other things. One, oh, come on. I thought that was the email. Anywho, this is the other thing I wanted to show you. Remember, we set up a test reviewer. Hello, reviewer. This is what it looks like when you CC someone. Is as soon as it's signed, they just get this exact same copy that the client's got. Same exact email. So, yeah, that is sending a contract from start to finish on Instanet 2.0. I hope you enjoyed, got something out of it. And like I said, there's going to be a ton more of these. We're going to continue doing the real series, the real world, real estate, REALtech. We're going to do things like Chime. We're going to do things like Matrix. We're going to do things like, website stuff. We're going to do things like intranet stuff, all sorts of cool things. So stay tuned for that. But until next time, adios.